Hi, I'm Simona Cherapanov, and I am doing the seventh portion, which is called Vayetze. He went out. The seventh day in creation is the day of rest. And this portion, like the other ones, has a lot of stuff in it. And we're going to cover just a few of it because it's a lot. But it does bring me to a place of thinking of the seventh day, Shabbat being the day of rest, to finally see Jacob stop running, facing his own decisions, his own shortcomings, and realizing I have to do something. Either I continue running, I continue deceiving, I continue lying, I can continue manipulating, or I am going to change this in a way that I can live up to it and be okay with it, and kind of like that gerbil going inside that wheel and just spinning and spinning and never stopping, and then finally saying, enough, I'm getting off the wheel and I'm going to do this the right way. And when he does, he becomes an overcomer, as we have all been called to be. So it is a way that God allows us to see through his life what is the consequences of living that way, and how it just all comes back to you over and over, one way or another. Even if it's not through in your own life, it may be in the life of your children, and that is, like, as a parent, that's the last thing I would want. I want to pay for my own mistakes. I don't want my kids to have to pay for them. But unfortunately, we do those things because sometimes we don't even realize we do. And then when we see it happen, then we go, oh, I can see where that's coming from. I did that and I didn't even notice. Sometimes we don't notice, and sometimes we are so blinded at the moment that, or we think that we were righteous in doing so, and then we realize, no, that was wrong. That was the wrong way of seeing it. I had the wrong glasses, and I I needed to see this. And the only way I could was because the pain made me see it. Unfortunately, that's one of our best teachers, is pain. It makes us stop. It makes us really think things through and do the best we can so that we don't have to face that pain again. So when I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking of the different things that Abraham did, the different things that Isaac did, and how Jacob acted. And it's almost like there are three different personalities, or children, that I would say, or examples of who we are or how we act in different situations in our lives. Because we have Abraham who, but because of fear, lies about Sarah being his sister. We see Isaac actually does the same. He fears, and he says that Rebecca is his sister to the same person, to Abimelech. But we also see then Jacob, because of his fear of not feeling that he could do what was right, because he just got caught into all this lying. And it is really hard when we start lying and we get used to it, then one lie leads to another. It's really hard to stop. So there has to be a moment that we have to realize, okay, I have to stop. I have to come clean and say, I did this wrong and I don't want to continue because it's going to get worse. And sometimes that's going to have to happen. There are two words that I wanted to go over for this portion that it repeats, and it is the concept of vision and the concept of dream. And both of them are very much involved, or Jacob is very much involved in both of them. So I'm going to try first vision. So vision, the word is mahase, And it appears only 4 times in the first 5 books of the Bible. And for remembering the fourth day is the day of authority, is the day of government, it really brings me to think, okay, he only used this word 4 times. Let me see how he uses the word to see how I need to understand vision, not just the visions that they went through, but there's something that he was very precise in only using it 4 times for me to see and for me to use as a grid for the visions that we may have nowadays, in our lives. So the first one is God gives Abraham a vision. And I love, this is even before he changed his name to Abraham. So this is still Abram. He hasn't had Isaac yet. He hasn't, the promise, the covenant hasn't been taking place yet. Nonetheless, he says to him, and I love it being the first vision, that God says to him, do not be afraid. And in this time right now, with everything that we're going through, with what I call pandemic, and well, many people do that too, not just me, but the fear that is going rampant, and people are doing insane, really horrible things. There's been such a polarization because of fear that we're hurting our friends, we're hurting our families with things that we're saying, with attitudes, with decisions that we're making that are really dividing. Families are dividing, friends are dividing, people in the workplace. So that he would start with, do not be afraid. I think it's important that we can say that, we can hear that, and we could come from that place of survival where fear is dominant, that we can come out to a place of reasoning, of thinking, where love is really what rules. That's why he says perfect love casts out fear. So if we can come out of that survival mode up to that mind of Messiah, where we reason, where we think, where we create, then we will be able to understand what he's saying. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. And that is who our Father is for us. He is our shield. If we trust him, he will protect us. And he is our reward. I don't have to try to make something happen, try to make, provide for myself, or create a name like with the Tower of Babel, which I'm going to be talking later on that too. It's not about me making things happen. It's trusting him and letting him do what he can do best. And he knows exactly what to do. So that was the first one, right? So then the next two is actually God giving a vision to Balaam. And the vision is about Jacob, is about the Jacob or Israel, the people of Israel. And the first one, he says, how lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your tabernacle, Israel. So it's interesting that we know that God in this portion changes the name from Jacob to Israel. And the first time in the same sentence, he uses both names. And in the first one is the tents, O Jacob. We know he was a man of the tent, comparing him to Esau, who was a man of the field. But then he says, your tabernacle, Israel. And that word tabernacle there is Mishkan, is the actual word for tabernacle that we'll see later on with Moses in the desert. So that word tabernacle also means dwelling place. So it's a place where you're not running from. It's a place where you rest. It's a place where you finally are at peace. And that would be Israel. He wrestled with God and he overcame, he prevailed, and he becomes Israel. So then we have Balaam also is that third vision, and it is about Messiah coming out of Jacob. And I say that because when you read what it says, he's talking about Messiah. It says, and I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. Shall come like a star out of Jacob, and shall rise a scepter out of Israel, and will destroy, shatter the corner of Moab, and destroy all the sons of, the word there is the seed of the body, which I'm like, what does that mean? Because it's the only place where it's used, that word. And it was, I know you're talking about Messiah. And Messiah, when he comes and shatters the corners of Moab, would be, when Moab was the sons of one of Lot's daughters in him out of incest, the Moabites. And so he is destroying that, shattering that. He's also shattering or destroying all the sons of, it says there tumult is, some of the words are translated as tumult, but when you go into the actual word, it says the seat of the body or the buttock. So I know we don't have tail, but that's a way of we can say the bottom. And that brought to my mind Deuteronomy 28:13, which says, the Lord Jehovah will make you the head and not the tail. And it reminds me, the tail, the serpent, right? And you shall be above and not beneath. When you will listen to the commandments of the Lord Jehovah your God that I command you today, and you keep and do them, and you shall not turn aside from all the commandments that I command to you today, not to the right nor to the left, and you shall not go after the gods of the Gentiles and serve them. So when we read that, he is saying that he will come, there will be a star out of Jacob and shall rise, and then he does the same thing he did before. He names Jacob first, and then he names Israel second, and then he says, and he will destroy or shatter sin, pretty much, Moab, and this place, the sons of tumult, the sons of the tail, the bottom. So what I see there is his first coming and his second coming out of that star of Jacob, that he came first. And then when he comes with a scepter, he is coming to set the record straight and destroy all evil. And then the fourth time that vision is used is when our Father is rebuking the false prophets in Ezekiel 13:7 for telling false visions or fleshy visions. It was more about what they wanted, and they were saying God said it, and it wasn't. It was their own flesh, their own visions. So we have those four visions, But then we have dreams. So it starts this portion with Jacob having the dream where he is laying down, he puts his head on a stone, and he sees a ladder. And that ladder goes from the earth up to, and it says, and it stopped, reached the heavens. And so there is only another place where there is something that starts in the earth and it reaches, and it uses that word, to the that reaches the heaven, and that is the Tower of Babel. In the Tower of Babel, we see that the top, they were doing this tower so that the top would reach the heavens. And it said that it was, the purpose of it was to make a name for themselves. So it was man trying to reach heaven on their own efforts and for their own purpose, for their own good. But we see, and I love that, we always talk about restoration, how God restores that. So here we have that sense of, I have to make it happen. And then in Jacob, we see the way it should be. Yes, there is a place that starts on earth and reaches out to heaven, but it's not so that I can go up there and create my name. It is a place where, in the dream, he saw angels. And the word angel means messenger of God. So those angels, that message from God was going up and down. They were going up, and they were going up the stairs, and they were coming down those ladders, the ladder. So, so the purpose here is not that I can reach the heavens. It is, and I can have a name. It is that his name can be heard by that message that's coming down to earth, or from earth to heaven. There is a connection between the two. And that is for the purpose of his word being known, his message being passed on. And when that is the case, then we have, we can restore what he always intended. We can become that ladder. We can become that place that unites heaven and earth for God to use us as messengers, or for others to see and hear God's message through us. So the other thing that I wanted to point out with that was that Jacob running out of, going towards Haran, and he is going by himself. And then he comes back when that word Haran, it's a mountaineer, but it also, the definition of it in the Strongs, in the concordance, would be crossroads. And he comes back as a nation when he becomes Israel. And what made me think was how many times we're leaving one place because we feel we have faced a crossroad, and we are not sure. Should I stay where I'm at? Should I go this way? Should I go that way? And if we end up going the right way, which he was obeying his father and going to Laban's house. So he's going to Haran, and he is going to that place of as a crossroad, and he has to make a decision. What am I going to do? Am I going to continue living this lie? Am I going to change it, like I said before? And he makes the right choice. And one of the things that I heard someone teaching on this, and I just loved it, the way he explained it. He said, when we face our situations head on, so because that word, and I'll explain it now about being straight, and we bring godly values into it, then we have become a ladder between heaven and earth. And I'm not sure, I know Rabbi Foreman has one of his videos about this this explanation about the ladder, but I think I heard this from either Jeremy or Ari Abramovitz last year. I can't remember, but it belongs to someone, and I am so thankful for that because it makes me think of so many times that I have done something wrong, and all I have done was cover it up and make it right, but not facing what I did wrong. And what happens is I try to cover it, and eventually it always comes out in the light anyhow. So I don't know why I do that, and we all do that, and it's just a waste of time because when we don't face it now, we're going to face it eventually. And sometimes it would have been easier if I faced it the first time it happened and not as it got worse when it finally did happen and I had to face it. So, with that said, instead of just trying to make it work, it's applying godly principles. I'm going to do this because this is the right thing to do, because this is what God says, this is what it is written, this is what God in me wants to see happen. I have to be that ladder. This message is not about Simonette. The message is about God. This is what God wants to say in this situation. So am I allowing him to use me as a ladder so his messenger, his angel can come through me and speak into that situation, or am I trying to do it myself? So the end result is no deception. Let's be honest, let's be clear, let's just try to keep deception out of the realm of our dealings with each other, and life will be so much easier. Then we become children of integrity. We become his children because God is integrous. He is one. He is not divided. He doesn't do this thing here and that there. He doesn't act this way in front of people and then a different way when he's by himself. He always does everything the same way because he is integrous. He is one. He is not fragmented. And we end up fragmenting ourselves to keep face, to save face, or to for fear, to help someone else. We think we're helping someone else, especially in trauma and abuse. You know, I will kill you, or I'll kill your loved one if you don't do what I say. And then we end up succumbing to that because of fear that somebody else is going to get hurt, which is not true. It's just a fear tactic to make you do what they want you to do. So Jacob, the name Jacob means deceiver, supplanter, the heel of your foot, which is the closest to the earth, kind of like the serpent from the earth, very fleshy and beast-like, or crooked. But then Israel, and that's the name he becomes, his name is changed to Israel. El means God, and Isra means straight, or one who wrestles with God and prevails, will be like a phrase for it, because when you wrestle with someone, you're wrestling face to face. So when you do things straight, when you keep your face in front and you say things face on and not behind somebody's back, you are becoming that overcomer. You are setting things straight. I'm going to say it to you face to face, and I'm going to face the music. I did something wrong. This is what I should have done because this is the right thing to do. So the other thing about the whole thing with his dream is that he places his head, I always thought, on a rock, on a stone. That is so hard. That would be like the last thing that I would want to put my head on. But then there is a reason why God puts that word there or made that happen that way. And it says he called that place Bethel, which Beth El, we go back to in Hebrew, El is God and Beth is house. So it is the house of God, which is, that also rock, we would say, is who is the rock? Is Messiah, right? And it is on this rock that it is on Yeshua. People think that it's on Peter that he was saying that, but no, he's not saying. Peter was, the word for Peter is Petra, and for rock is Eben. So it's not the same word that he's using as that stone that he's putting under his head. So, and the interesting thing is in that place is where eventually the rock will be born. So it is the place of and the head is also the place where the mind of Messiah, the mind of Christ, right, that we will have. Another interesting factor on this portion is the example of Esau selling his birthright because he was hungry. He wanted that lentil soup. So the point, or the what we take home, the application of that is never to sell your future for a moment in the present. So no matter how much we want something, if it's right now, if that is going to jeopardize the future, we need to think about that, because we're here to pass on that torch, right? We talked about that last week. And that torch is not my torch. I'm passing it on to the next generation. And it started way back there. So we see that Esau becomes Edom, which means red, because of that red soup. And then after him, his descendants are the Edomites, and they're called after the mistake that he made. And how sad would that be when we pass on something? We're not passing on God's message and promise, but we are called something because of our weaknesses in our flesh, and then our descendants are called that name. We don't see that with Jacob. On the contrary, Jacob becomes Israel because he faced his mistakes, he redeemed them, and he made them straight. And all believers are now called after Israel, which is, we are called, our name means that we wrestled and we prevail. We are overcomers. So how beautiful is that I may not be that yet, but I'm working towards that. I know that's who I am, and I'm working towards that because that's my name. That's the name, that's the torch that has been passed on to me and was said to me. You are an overcomer. Live it, face it, overcome, and pass it on. So that is the message that we can pass on God's message, or we can pass on our message, like the Tower of Babel. Passing on confusion. That's what Babel means. Okay, so then, so we find, again, another well, because we see Jacob trying to find Laban's family, his daughters, and when he gets to this place, which is, it says there is a well in the field, which is, we remember we talked about last week about what well means. Well is a walk of faith. And we see there that it's in the field. The field is also another word for nations. So we also can read that it says that there's 3 flocks of sheep, and they're all laying around that well, or next to, or besides that, the well. Well, the number 3 reminds us of resurrection, reminds us of the third day. But also, it says there that there was a big stone on the mouth of the well. Um, when you see stone, and we've been talking about the stone because that's what Jacob used to lay his head, it gives you that understanding. Okay, so the well is a walk of faith, and then the stone is on top, which is can represent Messiah, and then there's 3 flocks of sheep, and they're all laying around it, and it is high day, it says. So he's telling the other shepherds, it's in the middle of the day or in the middle of the afternoon. Why aren't you? There is still time for the flock to be watered and go out and eat. It's not time. It's not the end of the day for them to be gathered to take into the fold, but or we could say it's not the end of time. So these are sheep that are around that well waiting to be watered. And so when he's asking them, why are they waiting to be watered? And one of the dictionaries and the places that I found this information, it said that probably was to ensure a fair distribution of the water to all parties, especially those who were weak. They were too weak to roll away the stone. Because it said there that that stone was, when it says that it was a big stone, that it was probably too heavy for women or children to move. So all the shepherds will come in, and that way they would just wait for somebody that was stronger to move the stone, and then they could all be watered together and then be covered again. Which brings me back to that place of us, if we think about the end times. He said that not until we all attain to the unity of the faith, it says in Ephesians, so that we don't leave anybody behind. We wait for them. We can, when that stone is removed, we can all, be watered, we as sheep, and until that end of the day, when we will be all gathered back home. So thinking about that, thinking of the future, our Father is just, and He is letting us know there, I'm going to take all my sheep, and I'm not going to let anybody that is weak or anybody that is not able to come in when the strong person can move that rock and water their flock and move on and then cover it again, and then comes the other ones that are not able because they're maybe too young or weak or too not able, basically not strong enough to move that stone, and that stone needs to be moved for all of them. That is just another way, another place where our Father is reminding us, I restore all things. I care for all my sheep. I leave the 99 for that one that gets lost. I will take care of all of them. We see also Jacob saying the same thing when he's talking about, I can't move too fast. I need to go at the pace of the babies, of the little ones, because otherwise they may die in the process. So it is important that we are mindful of others and not just, I'm going to make it and I don't care if the other ones do or not. That's not the walk of faith. That's why it's a well. It's a walk of faith. The walk of faith is we all go in. So then it goes into the last few chapters. It's on Laban tricking Jacob by giving him Leah instead of Rachel, who he promised to give in marriage to him. And then when he says, why did you trick me? He says, well, we don't do here that way. We always give first the oldest and then the youngest. Kind of like saying to him, I know you did that in your home and you took the blessing before your brother who was older than you, but we don't do it that way. So it's an in your face kind of a thing. Okay, this is what you did. Well, sorry. This is why I'm doing this to you. And we see how he has to then work again another 7 years for Rachel. And then we have the long list of Leah had this many kids, and this is their names, and then Rachel gives his servant to Jacob so that she could have children through them, and then Leah gives his servant to, so he has all these kids. And he has 11, at that point he has 11, and his daughter Dinah, so that makes 12. And I just went ahead and put the meaning of the names of each child, and it's a beautiful, beautiful message. And I'm not going to go, this one is this and this one is that. I'm just going to read the message of going one after another. And it starts by saying, see a son who hears and obeys, and who is joined to the praise of Yah, of God. He judges and he wrestles and prevails. He is happy and will bring a recompense. To dwell in justice, he will increase. He is the son of the right hand. I added Benjamin there, who is not in this portion, but just so to complete the message that Benjamin is the son of the right hand, which is the hand of power, is the right hand, which we know he sits at the right hand of the Father. So it's just a beautiful message of who the Messiah is through the names of the sons and daughter of Jacob. So then we have all that. Then we have Jacob telling Laban, I have worked for you and prosper you, and now I need to prosper my own household. And let me find this scripture. And that the scripture goes, which is really neat to remember this, because this is God telling us, he's not just telling Jacob. This is written for us to see. And it came about at the time when the flock was breeding, that I raised my eyes, and I saw in a dream, and behold, the male goats that were mating were striped, speckled, and mottled. Then the angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob, and I said, here I am. He said, now raise your eyes and see that all the male goats that are mating are striped, speckled, and mottled, and I have seen everything that Laban has been doing to you. So nothing goes out of God's sight. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a memorial stone, where you made a vow to me. Now arise, leave this land, and return to the land of your birth. Rachel and Leah said to him, do we still have any share or inheritance in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us and has also entirely consumed our purchase price. Surely all the wealth which God has taken away from our father belongs to us and our children. Now then, do whatever God has told you. So when you read that, you realize, where is God in all of this? He's tricking his father Isaac, stealing from Esau. Then he's running away, and Laban is doing the same thing, tricking him with Leah instead of giving him Rachel. And then this whole thing about the striped and mottled and what was the other word? I had that here. The striped, the speckled, and the spotted. And those words appear for the, like striped, appears for the first time in all this paragraph that it's talking about how they were being whatever they made, that they were coming up with those lines and those speckles or spotted. And that word striped only appears there, and appears 7 times. And then the word speckled appeared in another place before this, but always referring to the same event. And that was something that he decided, okay, I don't want you to say that you have given me anything. This is all your flock, and I just want the ones that are striped, speckled, and spotted. So Laban again tricks him, takes away everything that is not a full color. They're not either black or white or brown. He just took the ones that had any type, any little stripe or any little speckle or spot, and then put them away and gave them to his sons, and put them like 3 days apart from day's journey from Laban's. And then he says, okay, here are all the blacks and here are all the whites, and those are the ones you're going to care for me. So Jacob is like, again, you just don't know when to stop. So then he decides to do this little thing about putting in front of them a piece of wood and he would put a stripe or the speckled or whatever he was doing. So whenever they would come to drink and they would look at that and they were mating, they would have sheep, little lambs, striped, speckled, or spotted. So I remember reading that the first time and thinking, that's a little strange. 1, 2, why is God allowing that to happen? But you just heard me read it, and God is saying that. He's saying, I saw that. That was not something that Jacob just came up with. God put it there in his mind, and he made it happen so that he could increase the wealth for Jacob, not because he deserved it out of just, God said so I'm going to give it to you, which he can, of course. But it was because he was really trying to do his best. He worked as hard as he could, and the other one kept stealing from him, kept tricking him, kept changing his wages. And he said, enough. I've seen what he has done. Don't think that I'm blind to that. And it is time now for you to leave. And there is a diary that is given, those 7 years that he worked for one and the 7 years that he worked for the other sister, for both of them, for Leah and for Rachel. That money goes to the father, and it's not for the father to use. It's for the father to save in case something happens to their daughters. They have money. They have a way to support themselves. If, let's say, Jacob never has any money for them and he dies or something like that, and then they would be widows and they would be poor, and then they will end up being either died or in being slave to someone because they couldn't support themselves. So that dowry was there for them, and the father used it and spent it. It says there, God says that he did. He is saying that that's what their daughters are, his daughters are saying, and so that father really didn't care for them. Whatever happens to you, then so be it, because there's no money here for you. So we see how Laban acted, and the bottom line with this is that God took care of them. He prospered them. He came back with lots of property and family, and he comes back being Israel, not Jacob anymore. He's changed. And I pray that we would learn from them and we would continue to put his message forward and pass that baton and allow him to use us as a conduit, as a ladder for his message to be heard and seen. Have a great Shabbat.